We have completed another week here in the Kansas legislature. Quite a bit happened this week. I think things are picking up after what I considered a very slow first half of the session. Obviously, one of the big issues this session is school finance. An announcement came out earlier this week that the chair of the House K-12 Budget Committee has delayed any further hearings until we get the results from a couple different studies that were commissioned. As you know, I mentioned last week that the legislature had commissioned Dr. Lori Taylor from Texas A&M University to do a cost study on our K-12 funding formula here in the state of Kansas. She did give a preliminary report a week and a half ago, and she will now have her final report done on March 15th due to the legislature. Now also something else that's come up is another peer study has been ordered. They have commissioned Dr. Jesse Levine of the American Institutes for Research, and he's to look over the Dr. Lori Taylor finding and bring it before the legislature as well. So we should get two studies on March 15th. I'm a little frustrated, like many legislators here. I believe that we should have been moving forward with the available monies and put forth at least some sort of a proposal to the Supreme Court. And I think we would have been in the ballpark with the monies that are available. More on that later, obviously. If you're following the legislature at all, House Bill 2740 was a property tax bill that was introduced to the tax committee. And so as a legislator, you oftentimes get a lot of emails on various pieces of legislation. And many of us were getting emails on this. I didn't know about this bill, but interestingly enough, it was introduced, and they had hearings on it the other day. There were no proponents. There were plenty of opponents, and so I don't see that bill going anywhere. I know a lot of people are concerned about coming up with money for school funding and so forth via the property tax. I do not see that getting any traction this session, so at least for now, I think that has been put to bed. The Tax Committee also passed legislation that requires public disclosure of all economic incentive data. There's been a lot of concern about some of the economic development programs that are out there and whether or not there's any kind of accountability and transparency. So they had hearings on this the other day that they'd like to see a little bit more public disclosure of where these monies are going to as far as economic incentives. And I think it's only fair to say that we should find out, a little bit about what the results are. And so sometimes that's kind of hard to get that information, but hopefully we're on the right track to get that done here in the future. Now, a lot of legislators, myself included, have been getting plenty of emails and visits to our office and letters regarding the desire by a lot of folks out there to have Kansas participate in a constitutional convention. This is required, to have 2/3 of the states involved to call for a constitutional convention when they want to make major changes to the Constitution. In this case, I think there are issues out there like deficit spending, eliminating that, and other things. At any rate, in the Senate this week, they did have a debate on the Senate floor on whether or not for Kansas to participate in that constitutional convention. You need 2/3 vote in the respective chambers, and that would require 27 votes in our state Senate. They did not get that. The final vote on that was 22-16. I doubt if the House is going to take that up. I haven't heard much about that. There's a proposal out there, I guess we're on taxes here again, to collect internet sales taxes. That's House Bill 2756. This has been around for years. A lot of people concerned, about our Main Street businesses kind of, being on an unfair playing field because they've got to collect sales taxes where internet sales are not. So this bill is like many of them that have been before the legislature in the past, would require retailers to, collect Kansas sales tax. So I think that's moving along, and that may be something that gets some traction here before long. Thursday in the House Taxation Committee was Sales Tax Exemption Day, I guess you could say. Several bills in there, including a bill on behalf of Ellis County Courthouse Preservation Project to see that their purchases would be tax exempt. Once again, there was a number of bills proposed that day for various entities around the state. It sounded to me that quite a few people on that committee were not really amenable to any kind of retail sales tax exemptions. But I've seen things like that, crop up again on the House floor, so we may hear more about that later. Also, big news this week for teachers was the due process procedure was restored, at least in the House, passed overwhelmingly. Anytime a teacher is dismissed or does not have their contract renewed, this gives them an opportunity to go before a hearing board and defend their case. And so that was stripped out of our proceedings a couple of years ago, very late at night. A lot of people were upset about that. So it came back and, as I mentioned, passed overwhelmingly in the House. I think it got 75 votes. Whether or not it'll get that kind of support in the Senate remains to be seen. So that bill will be going to the Senate, possibly this week, or I should say next week. Also, there were a couple bills passed on our policies regarding bullying, and school districts are required on their website to state their policies regarding bullying. Once again, I would really join everybody in Hays in thanking our first responders. I know it was a very trying week in Ellis County with all the fires, and I'm very thankful for all those people, firefighters, police, emergency response people, for the job that they did. And we can be very thankful that we didn't see any serious injuries, and I'm looking forward to getting back to hearing more reports on that. But I think we can be very proud of those people, and once again be very thankful.